Kash Patel's been nominated for director of FBI. He's going through this nomination process of being asked a bunch of questions. If you don't know Kash Patel, let me just introduce you. This is him joking about selling classified documents with Julie Green, famous for being a Trump prophet of the Trump theology, and Clay Clark, who has his own whole set of problems.
And I'm just going to kind of do that. That's my angle.
And we'll have a stuffed Biden sleeping on the Delaware beach thing.
We could bring in the real Biden or a stuffed Biden. You couldn't tell the difference. People would go, how do I know if this is the real one?
Wow, that's so funny. God, these guys are so funny. They know how to put a joke together, right?
Or not. They both are the same.
We could sell the classified docs he stole. We'll do an auction.
I'm so buying that.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to kind of do that. That's my angle.
And we'll have a stuffed Biden.
So anyway, that's just an example of some of the stupid shit that Kash Patel talks about. He's also a complete conspiracy theorist to the core. Here's another thing that Kash Patel's been up to.
Mr. Patel has also peddled conspiracy theories for his own financial benefit, promoting a line of dietary supplements that claim to help people detox from COVID-19 vaccines. Mr. Patel has also peddled conspiracy.
How vile is that? To sell a quote-unquote a detox for people that got vaccinated but don't want to be anymore. This is as low as the people that sold that. Do you remember that thing they claimed was like an air purifier, and you put it in your pocket basically, and it protects you from quote unquote vaccine shedding? And it was just a little tiny box with a little itty bitty fan in it, and you flip it on, and the fan blows, and it's in your pocket, and they claim that it protects you from vaccine shedding. I mean, it's just scamming gullible suckers is all that is, and as funny as I find that, it's wrong. It is morally wrong and unacceptable in my mind. And Kash Patel did some of that. On top of that, if you don't know who Kash Patel is at all, people believe that he's...
I tease him about that.
People believe that he's Q.
Guys, tune in at 6. We'll have a lot more with Kash. Many of whom refer to as Q, but I don't know. I don't think so.
Oh my God! See how he is? I know. I tease him about that too.
Yeah, listen. Hey. He certainly would know. If there's someone that could
He
see
hasn't
he has not fully denied. So,
my God, dude. It's really sad. These people on screen know better. They know that there is no Q. I don't want to go down the whole rabbit hole because this is about Kash Patel over anybody else, but he is a top contender for who Q might be. If you are unfamiliar with this whole belief system, there's a messaging board kind of like Reddit called 4chan where a bunch of people post on there, and it's absolutely psychotic. It's like Nazi stuff. It's all Nazi level stuff. And they claimed on 4chan that some random dude claimed to have Q level security clearance, which is the highest level security clearance available. It's in the Department of Energy because of nuclear secrets and stuff. So this guy called himself Q Clearance Patriot, and he started messaging all kinds of things on 4chan about how Hillary Clinton is about to be arrested and the National Guard is going to, all this ridiculous nonsense. And he kept posting stupid stuff like this. None of it came true. None of it. But people seem to believe it. I don't know why. The people on 4chan believed it. The mods stickied it to the top of the board and all kinds of crazy stuff. Eventually, Q basically was talked into moving to 8chan by the guy who created 8chan or by the moderator of 8chan or whatever. 8chan is like 4chan, except there are literally no rules about what you can say or do. The servers for 8chan are hosted in the Philippines, and there's all kinds of CP and everything on there. Everything. I mean, really, really vile shit. So anyway, Q moves to 8chan, and then Q's whole personality changed from that moment on. It was very clear that the moderator of 8chan took over the QAnon account. It started out as Paul Ferber originally, which is just some random software engineer. And he had a little bit of help from Tracy Beans Diaz. She's a public figure on the right. When they moved to 8chan, it was taken over by Ron Watkins. Ron Watkins is his name. Ron Watkins is Q. That's who you're thinking of when you hear the name Q. It's this guy right here. This is the real Q. He ran for Congress in Arizona not too long ago.
My name is Ron Watkins, and I am not a politician. I am an entrepreneur, and I'm a computer scientist.
Yeah, again, he moderates the 8chan forum. He is he's like a server administrator, basically.
We have to send a fighter, and I am your fighter. I am fighting for you. If you send me to DC, you will know that I will be fighting against this evil, and I will make sure that we drive them back, and I will make sure that your rights are kept.
Okay.
Biggest issue for this district is the border wall. The border wall was not completed, and there are actually sections of it that were destroyed. And I went down to those sections and I asked the locals, how did this section of the border wall get destroyed? And they told me that Biden sent the Army Corps of Engineers down there to destroy the border wall for flood prevention issues. So
the people near the border wall told you that Biden had the border wall destroyed. Oh my God.
I went down there and I saw with my own eyes, I saw the coyotes sitting right across the border.
Coyotes, of course, are people that they do human trafficking, basically, right? Anyway, that's Q. If you were wondering, that's the real Q. It's not Kush Patel. Dude's just completely full of shit. He lost his election, by the way.
The coyotes looked me in the eyes and they ran away.
Because they were afraid of him, you see. They looked him in the eye and they were afraid of him.
In the eyes and they ran away. I want to say that we would not even be in Ukraine if President Biden did not shut down the Keystone Pipeline on the first day. Because
that didn't happen.
Now that that's shut down, we have to get our oil, and we're getting it from Russia, and we're getting all these problems through the Ukraine, and that would not have happened if Biden did not.
So you see, the Ukraine, the pipeline helped prompt Russia to invade Ukraine.
Yes, sir, because we've got all of this oil coming through from Russia to the United States, and they want the better route to bring the oil through.
That's not why they went into Ukraine. They went into Ukraine because Ukraine didn't want to be part of NATO. Listen, you're trying to work on the national stage and you don't even know why the war started in Ukraine.
God, he got bodied. Anyway, we're not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about the fact that Kush Patel is suspected to be Q. It's Ron Watkins, not Kush Patel. But Kush likes to play into it and pretend, oh, I don't know who's Q.
So we'll see.
Oh my God, you're starting so much here. It's
so stupid. Do you know that? I'm sorry, just get a little aside here. This is Kimberly Guilfoyle on the right. This is Don Jr.'s wife. Do you know that she's Gavin Newsom's ex-wife? For real. Anyway, here's why I wanted to talk about Kush Patel in the first place. Because Kush Patel is going through the process of being confirmed as FBI director by the Senate, I believe. Just listen to this little thing right here.
Stu Peters, does that name ring a bell?
I'm sorry, what?
Are you familiar with Mr. Stu Peters?
Not off the top of my head.
Not off the top of my head. He's not familiar with Stu Peters off the top of his head. Well, that's interesting.
He made 8 separate appearances on his podcast. He promoted outrageous conspiracy theories and worked with a prominent neo-Nazi. There are more. Ted Nugent, it goes on, list goes on. I'm just asking, when it comes to your association with individuals, why are so many of them in this category?
The category of neo-Nazi.
My association, as you loosely define it, is by appearing in media over 1,000 times to take on people who are putting on conspiratorial theories and to devour them of their false impressions and to talk to them about the truth. That is something that I will always continue to fight for, Senator.
Okay, well, that was a good answer if it were true. It's a complete lie, and he knows that it's a lie. He lied under oath. He goes on Stu Peters consistently. He's been on there a billion times. Look, this is just a compilation that was put together, I think, by Right Wing Watch, maybe?
Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Stu. Always love coming on your show.
Kush Patel, thank you so much for making the time to be here with us. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Stu. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Stu. Appreciate it. See you soon.
I got to go, Kush. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thanks,
up against a hard break here. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it, Stu.
Kush Patel, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Stu. Appreciate it. You've got a great show.
Thank you.
Wow, that's kind of awkward, right? Just caught in a flat out blatant lie. The reason that it's important that he knew Stu Peters in the first place is pretty straightforward. If you're unfamiliar with Stu Peters, let me just show you just two clips from him, okay? I talk about Stu Peters pretty often, but here's just one example of who the guy is. Stu Peters tweets before Mein Kampf, and he's wearing a hat backwards and a hoodie and stuff. After Mein Kampf, he's wearing a suit. Message is pretty clear, right? Mein Kampf, of all things. Or how about this one right here?
They have
Sorry, turn it down.
to say these outlandish
Hold on.
things.
All right. John Miller is one of his guests.
They have to say these outlandish things to make up for the fact that if it weren't for this sort of ridiculous, cartoonish death narrative that we've been sold, a lot of people would be looking at the 1930s through 1940s saying, not only does this make a lot of sense, not only does this kind of all add up and history play itself out in the way that we'd expect it to, but there's a lot of similarities to today. And you can't afford to have people start to make those connections. So they come in with this just outlandish narrative where it's if you put it in a movie, people would say, I didn't like that movie because
that is this just outlandish story of the Holocaust.
I just thought it was a little too cartoonish. I didn't think it was realistic. And that's the narrative we've been sold. And to make Hitler out to be this obscene monster, that's the only way they can essentially remedy this story so that you can say it's clear who the bad guys were and it's clear who the good guys were. Because when you take that part out of the narrative, then it's not really as clear who the evil ones are.
How depraved is this shit? How depraved is this? This is disgusting. This is Stu Peters, okay? You think that's bad? That's just a guest he had on. He has said the same shit himself personally.
And Weimar, of course, was the birthplace of the transgenderism and gay rights movements that...
No, it wasn't. Weimar, by the way, Weimar was the government in Germany after World War I. After they lost World War I, they had to sign the Treaty of Versailles, and they were forced to adopt democracy, basically.
Have once again reared their ugly heads to plague Western Christian society, especially America. All of this was happening with the full blessing of the Weimar government, which was largely controlled by Jews.
What an absolutely ass-backward, wild thing to say. Dude is literally blaming Jews for trans people right now. Like, really? What broke in you that you would say such a thing, that you would even come to a conclusion like that, an incorrect conclusion like that? Weimar Germany, the Weimar Republic, was the government that was destroyed by the Nazi movement after Hitler took control. It was the democracy that was destroyed. And Stu Peters is demonizing German democracy and praising the Nazi government for destroying it.
The Jews controlled the German court system. Jews controlled the German banking system.
No. There's a conspiracy about the Rothschilds. It's a family, a Jewish kind of banking family or whatever. I read this whole thing about the Rothschilds, but they're just a family. That's it. They're a family that got rich from currency exchange, effectively. They were early currency exchange people, and they made money from it because at the time, making money from interest was kind of against the law in Christianity. Like, Christians weren't supposed to earn interest off of each other. So the Rothschilds come along as a Jewish family, and they were allowed to charge interest. And in fact, they were encouraged to by the bank, the Christian banks, so that the banks could make money, and it would be somebody other than a Christian that was doing it. They were capitalists, naturally, and that pissed people off. Anyway, Hitler accused the Rothschilds of controlling, the media, controlling the banks, and the everything, when in reality, that's complete misrepresentation of all of it, obviously.
The Jewish people had unprecedented overrepresentation in Germany's government, and they ruled the numerous and hyper-violent communist factions that were trying to take over the country, both by force and at the ballot box. The Jews also ruled the biggest cultural forces of the time, which were often...
This is all bullshit. It's all Nazi nonsense. It's all Nazi propaganda that he's spreading. None of this is true.
Merged with academia, with the medical field, maximum infiltration for maximum effect. Sound familiar? They would set their crosshairs on something. They would decide on something that they wanted to completely destroy, some sense of normalcy that they wanted to chip away at, and they'd legitimize it through phony academic and medical studies, just like they continue to do right now.
That's a lie. It's not true. This is Nazi propaganda. And again, this is who Kush Patel hangs out with. This is where he goes. This is not an adversarial conversation. None of the 8 appearances he made were adversarial conversations. He said, "Thanks so much for having me, Stu. I really appreciate it. You're such a good guy." Stu Peters is a full-blown, self-avowed, Hitler-loving Nazi. I mean, this is like a 9-minute video, so we can't watch the whole thing, but you get the idea. In this video, he basically says that the things that Hitler did was heroic. Well, that's not basically what he said. That's what he said. He said Hitler acted in a heroic way by stopping these Jews from taking over culture or something to that effect. He basically called Hitler a hero.
And one of the most disgusting, most revolting figures of the entire Weimar Republic was a man called Magnus Hirschfeld.
Hirschfeld is his name. And no, he was just a gay dude, like really, that ran a sexology institute that the Nazis destroyed. Anyway, he said that Hitler was a hero in that effectively. And he goes on this program and says to Fresh and Fit that that's not true.
I have 3 kids. I don't know if you're a dad. I don't know if you're a dad. I am a dad. And if you walk up to me and tell me I'm coming for your kids.
Who said that?
Prepare to die, amigo.
Game on.
Prepare to f***ing die.
Who said that? Who is saying this?
So where are the millions of men in this country whose kids these f***s are coming for? Where are the millions of men whose kids are being indoctrinated with critical race theory and told to hate themselves because their skin color is white?
This is not happening. This is complete delusion.
Yeah. Or to go chop their fucking off, or that they'll be happy if they mutilate themselves and become the opposite sex. They go to school as Tony and they come home as Ginger.
This is complete nonsense. All of it. All the way down. This is the kind of person that Stu Peters is. Actually, I meant to play this clip, but that one was good enough too. I'll leave it in.
Yesterday, Newsweek called me a pro-Hitler Nazi. Raw Story called me a pro-Hitler Nazi. I don't know how these people get away. I mean,
Well, I mean, you said it.
They said that I was a Holocaust denier, which is completely false, emphatically false.
Well, what Holocaust denier means something very specific. It means that you deny aspects of the Holocaust, or you twist it around or revise it or whatever. And that is 100% real. It is absolutely true. He 100% for sure does do that. Obviously, we listened to it.
As a matter of fact, they made up a quote out of whole cloth and said, Stu Peters said, quote, Hitler is a hero.
He said that. That wasn't made up out of whole cloth. We were just listening to that video.
I have never said any such thing. And they can print this stuff with impunity because the hubris is so...
No, they can't print that with an impunity, actually. If it were a lie, you could sue them for libel. Notice he doesn't do that. He's a millionaire. He's over a millionaire. He's got way more than that. He is massively famous in this field. He's got so many subscribers, it's ridiculous. Like 15 times more viewers than me, by far. He could sue them if they lied about him. He doesn't sue them. Is that weird?
Because there's no accountability. Yeah. And so they did this as a result of me announcing the Extreme Accountability event.
Okay.
And that's what we are going to...
Extreme Accountability event is a whole separate subject. He tried to hold a conference where he advocates for extreme accountability, quote unquote, which means hanging people that he disagrees with, really. Anyway, he was basically, the conference venue found out what he meant when he said that, and they canceled the contract. That's all. At any rate, that's who Kush Patel is hanging out with. These are the people whose shows he is appearing, or on whose shows that he's appearing. These are the people he's hanging around with, and he wants to pretend he doesn't know these people.
Stu Peters, does that name ring a bell?
I'm sorry, what?
Are you familiar with Mr. Stu Peters?
Not off the top of my head.
Not off the top of your head, you say. You don't know Stu Peters, you say. That is really interesting. That is an interesting thing for you to say after this.
Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Stu. Always love coming on your show.
Kush Patel, thank you so much for making the time to be here with us. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Stu. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Stu. Appreciate it. See you soon.
I got to go, Kush. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
That doesn't sound adversarial to me. That sounds like you know exactly who that is and that you're friendly with him, that you like what he does. You like the things that he talks about. You like his connection with this specific community. Here's an article from Washington Post on Kush Patel. Asked about his appearances on the podcast of far-right commentator Stu Peters, Kush Patel told Senator Dick Durbin of Illinois he was not familiar off the top of his head with Stu Peters. You made 8 separate appearances on his podcast. He promoted outrageous conspiracy theories and worked with a prominent neo-Nazi, Durbin responded. I'm just asking, when it comes to your association with individuals, why are so many of them in this category? I don't believe that it's even necessary to say that he worked with a prominent neo-Nazi. Stu Peters is a prominent neo-Nazi. He is a Nazi.
Hirschfeld was a Jewish physician and self-proclaimed sexologist who pioneered transgenderism at his Berlin-based Institute for Sexual Research.
He tried to normalize being LGBT outside the norm, basically. He tried to normalize it. He had tens of thousands of books, pictures, writings, whatever, on sexual subjects, about 30,000 on the high end of the estimates. And the Nazis showed up, got out of their van, went inside, destroyed picture frames, threw like busts to each other, broke them on the floor, poured red ink all over the books and the pictures, and burned stuff. They were looking for Hirschfeld and asked where he was. They were told he was in France on a business trip, and they said, good, maybe he'll snuff it without us, quote unquote. He did die in 1936. This happened in, I think, 33, pretty close to immediately after Hitler took control of the government. I don't remember when this happened, actually. I can find out. May 1933, May 6, 1933 is when they raided Hirschfeld's Institute of Sexology, I think is what it's called. And he had between 12,000 and 20,000 books. Estimates vary. So this was 1 month after the Jewish boycott, the April 1st Jewish boycott, 1 month. And it was basically 3 or 4 months after Hitler took control and started doing psychotic shit. They said, hopefully he'll snuff it without us, then we won't need to string him up or beat him to death.
Hirschfeld himself was a homosexual. He was the father of transgenderism.
Hirschfeld, and no, he wasn't. I mean, trans people have existed for like ever.
He's still hailed as a hero today by many a pervert. He was the first person to perform a male-to-female operation.
I'm sorry for the slurs. I will cut them out in the final product. Hirschfeld was on the cutting edge of science at the time in the 1930s. And he was providing classes and stuff like that. It was in its infancy because historically people have not been allowed to experience their personalities, or they haven't been able to just be who they are without being persecuted. So he took the opportunity, living in Weimar, Germany, to build people up and learn about who they are, work with people and stuff.
These same disgusting science fiction perversions that are being peddled to us today with the backing of the U.S. government and a bunch of perverted so-called doctors were being peddled to the Germans in the 1930s by their government and a bunch of perverted fake doctors like Magnus Hirschfeld.
Absolute nonsense. Hirschfeld was not part of the German government, first and foremost. And they weren't and are not today pushing anything on kids or whatever. People are gay. That's just what it is. That's really the root of Stu Peters' complaints, that people are gay. He doesn't like that.
And the others who hung around his facility. Now, I'm going to ask you to just imagine for a moment how sick one has to be actually be the guy to come up with all of this and then to actually do it to people, to carry it out.
Like, I got my finger on the space bar ready to pause at a moment's notice because I don't remember some of the warped, disturbing shit that this guy says in this. I just want to show you who he is and who Kush Patel works with regularly, gets along with, hangs out with, talks to, does shows with, and all of that other stuff. I want everybody to fully understand who Kush Patel is.
It's not a pleasant image to think about. But imagine this disgusting surgery. I mean, it's brutal today in 2024.
Yeah, I don't need to imagine because this is complete nonsense. I'm sure you've probably heard Marjorie Taylor Greene talk about abortions and what goes along with getting abortions incorrectly, talking about ripping the baby out and ripping the mother out, all that stupid shit. It's all made up. That is not what happens. She has no idea how any of this works and doesn't care. She just wants to make it up. In 1933, there's a guy named Julius Streicher. Julius Streicher was what was known as a Jew baiter, quote unquote. He owned a magazine called the Stormer, Der Stürmer is what it was called. In this magazine, he just make things up about people. He claimed that if a male mammal mates with a female mammal, the DNA from the male mammal will stay in the female mammal forever until it dies. And every child it sires from that moment on will have the DNA of the first male mammal that it was with. And that was the justification for classifying any woman that was married to a non-Aryan man, quote unquote, as non-Aryan herself. And he would say vile stuff, like exactly how Marjorie Taylor Greene talked about it. Stu Peters is the modern day Julius Streicher. Streicher used his magazine to get people whipped into a blood frenzy and willing to murder people for the things that he said, for the claims that he made. And he was one of, I think, 8 people who was executed in the Nuremberg trials. I forget how many. I mean, many others were tried, many others got sentences, but I believe only 8 were actually executed. It tried 24 of the most prominent Nazi leaders. 12 were sentenced to death. Hermann Göring checked out the night before he was scheduled to be executed. As I say in my book on the subject, Was Hitler an Atheist? Amazon and Audible. He hid a cyanide capsule in the only pocket nobody wanted to search. Julius Streicher was one of the people that was executed in the Nuremberg trials. Stu Peters is the new Julius Streicher. They're nearly identical in how they operate and how they think, in the lies that they spread, in the way that they frame their propaganda. They're nearly identical. Another thing that Streicher used to do to demonize Jews is he would describe the process of, he would describe kosher slaughter practices in gory detail. To be kosher, it has to be bled in a specific way. Like you have to, slaughtering an animal is messy either way. Have you ever been hunting before? I mean, it's ugly. You pull the trigger and you hit a deer. Sometimes you don't kill the deer. You have to go up and give it a coup de grace, put it out of its misery, and then you start cutting its skin. I mean, it's ugly. That's part of eating an animal. Human beings have done that forever. And it's kind of, it's a unique, specific process to make something kosher. You have to tie it up and cut its throat while its heart is beating so that the blood will drain, basically, to make sure that there is no blood in there, because they're not supposed to eat meat that has blood. That's the process. And Julius Streicher would go into gory, disturbing detail about the process. Why? For the exact same reason Marjorie Taylor Greene goes into detail about abortions, even though it's made up. It's made up detail from her. For the exact same reason Stu Peters makes things up in gory detail, as we were listening to, about the trans community and about how, Magnus Hirschfeld supposedly did these trans surgeries or whatever. Gory detail to get people emotionally invested in all of this. He's vile. These people are vile. There is no better word for it. Streicher also wrote children's books, interestingly enough. Julius Streicher did. You know who else wrote a children's book? Kush Patel. Hold on. It's, here it is. This one right here. The Plot Against the King. Julius Streicher also made the claim that Jews eat babies. That was a popular one. Again, this is all stuff that Stu Peters and or Kush Patel have repeated or claimed directly. They claimed that they take part in ritual murders of babies. I'm sorry, let me rephrase. Julie Stryker claimed they take part in ritual murders of babies that imitate the sacrifice of Jesus. It's obviously a complete lie. Like, why would anybody do that? That's just complete fictitious nonsense. But it gets Christians whipped into a blood frenzy over this whole thing, over Jews existing in society with them. He claimed that Julie Stryker claimed a Jewish guy brutally killed a cat and convinced everybody that the attacker deserved the same fate as the cat, and went into like disgusting, gory detail about how this happened. And it was made up. The whole thing was made up. It was all fictitious. Dude stood there on stage and described this whole thing in vivid, disgusting, fake detail. Those are the exact types of people we're dealing with today. The types of people that do that just lie, that make things up to get people pissed off over nothing, specifically about gay people. Get people pissed off over gay people. Let me know what you think about it in the comments.